Okay, you should be good to go, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public, staff, and council. Welcome to our Monday, July 18th council meeting. Before I get into the actual meeting, I have a couple of announcements that I'd like to make. So on behalf of council and staff, we would like to congratulate Kaylin McDonald, our Deputy Treasurer, on her recent completion of the AMCTO diploma in municipal administration. Kaylin's continuation of her education while working full-time demonstrates her dedication to her professionalism and commitment to our municipality. So congratulations, Kaylin, on behalf of council. Well done. And the second announcement is I'm very happy to announce that following a 2-year hiatus due to COVID, we will be holding our 14th edition of the South Glengarry Business and Community Awards Gala. It's going to be held on Saturday, September 24th at the Shireland Recreation Center. This is a time to come together to celebrate the outstanding achievement of local businesses and individuals with typical South Glengarry pride. Please watch for the opening of the award nominations, and we hope to see you there in a couple months. So thank you for that. Moved by Martin Lang, second by Rebecca Luck, be resolved that the July 18th, 2022 regular council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry be opened at 7:02 p.m. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Ready? Now I'll ask everyone to rise for the playing of our national anthem. Okay, thank you for that. Approval of the agenda. Okay, disclosure of pecuniary interests. Are there any? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or amendments, Madam Clerk?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, we've had a request to move item 9E regarding the firefighter certification from the consent agenda to section 10, items for consideration.
Okay, I see Deputy Mayor Jaworski has her hand up. Go ahead, Ms. Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Warden, and my apologies to Clerk Campo for not asking this earlier, but I would like to bring ahead the item with regards to the Amber Alert system. So that's 9A.
9A. Okay, so noted. Thank you very much. Moved by Rebecca Luck, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that the minutes of the July 4th, 2022 regular council meeting including the closed session minutes be adopted as circulated. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. And moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the minutes of July 4th, 2022 public meeting be adopted as circulated. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 6, presentations and delegations. I understand we have a presentation this evening from the St. Lawrence River Institute, Beach Closings Beneficial Use Impairment. Is someone introducing who's doing the presentation? Madam Clerk? You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll introduce our presenter this evening. So we have Georgia Bach here to present to council, who reached out to us through Deputy Mayor Jaworski, and she's joined by her colleague, Mr. Jeff Riddle.
And if I could, through you, Mayor Warden, just
Yes.
so like give a little bit more context. So I was appointed as the Township of South Glengarry representative to the St. Lawrence River Restoration Council, and so this work here, the beneficial use impairment report links right back to that work, and so I'm really happy to see Georgia and Jeff here tonight, so that it'll give a little bit more insight to council on what exactly is the work of the River Restoration Council. So I thank very much for them putting together this presentation and presenting it to us tonight.
Okay, floor is yours.
Great, just let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see the screen.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, thank you for having me. I am Georgia Bach. I'm the Remedial Action Plan Coordinator for the St. Lawrence River area of concern. And I'm here to talk to you a bit about beach closings today. And thank you for the introduction, Stephanie. And yeah. So before I go into beach closings, I'm just gonna do a quick overview of what the area of concern is, for those that you don't know about it, and what the remedial action plan is. So the St. Lawrence River area of concern. So back in the 1980s, under the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement, there were 43 area of concerns designated. This was due to degraded water quality around the Great Lakes area, basin. And so you can see on the right side there, the St. Lawrence River is one of those areas of concern. And here's a bit of a closer look of the area of concern. And you can see that, like, you probably know that our area is very complex. There's different jurisdictions, different governments on both sides of the river. And because of that, it's been divided into 2 areas. So we actually today are going to be talking about the northern area, which is here in green. And just to note, both sides have different contaminants on both sides of the river, just due to different industries and that kind of thing. So now I'm going to go into what the remedial action plan is. So you know that the areas, St. Lawrence River was chosen to be an area of concern, and essentially to clean it up, a remedial action plan was created. And so the remedial action plan helps clean up the area of concern by cleaning up identified environmental issues. And there's going to be a bunch of technical information in this presentation, just because it's a 30-year or 35-year project, really, and it's just carried on some technical lingo throughout it. So these environmental issues are actually going to be called beneficial use impairments, but I'll get to that. And the goal is to have the area of concern to be the better or the same conditions as other areas in the Great Lakes Basin. So as I said, this plan is pretty much cleaning up the area of concern by addressing beneficial use impairments. There's a definition there that says it's a name given to an environmental service or use that's been degraded by historic human activity. I just call them environmental issues that we work on. And we're working on restoring each of them. So from being impaired to not impaired. and they need to meet a specific set of scientific criteria to be able to be restored. So here is where we are at right now. We have 5 that are still impaired, 2 that need further assessment, and 7 that are considered not impaired. So we're about halfway there. And you can see beach closings here on the right side is one of the ones that's still impaired. And so, as Stephanie had mentioned, there is a local council that oversees the remedial action plan. It includes government agencies, industry, local organizations, and others, and actually some community members as well. And Stephanie sits on that council. And we meet probably about 3 times a year, I think. So as I had said, the whole point is to be redesignating these BUIs to be able to, and when we redesignate all these BUIs or beneficial use impairments, then the area can be considered restored. So the process is choosing those BUIs, and then we have, we create science-based criteria for them. Then there's remedial actions that are put in place to try to get to the criteria or the goals that we set. And there's monitoring that occurs throughout to see whether we're meeting those goals or criteria. And then when we think we're meeting those goals or criteria, we make an assessment report, and the council reviews this report and sees whether they think that we're meeting their criteria. And if they agree that we're meeting the criteria, then they say, let's put it out for community feedback. So that's kind of where we are with beach closings right now. The council has approved essentially this assessment report for beach closings to go out to the broader community. And then community feedback is taken, and a final report is sent to the governments of Canada and Ontario recommending for a change of status. So now that you kind of have an overview of the area of concern, I'm going to go into beach closings. So back in the 1980s, E. coli levels were high and beach closings occurred often. And it's because of a number of reasons, like combined sewer outflows, industrial runoff, etc. You can see the list right there. So it's considered impaired, and 3 delisting criteria were created for the beach closings, and they're very technical. So I'll kind of make an attempt of explaining them, and you can always ask me questions if you don't understand them. So it's pretty much number 1 is that we're meeting the provincial water quality objective for an annual swimming season for 80% of the time. So that means beaches are essentially open 80% of the time. And we know where the pollution is, the fecal pollution or E. coli is coming from. And if there are exceedances, they're associated with natural events like rainfall. So often, like after a heavy rainfall, there will be E. coli exceedances at beaches. Number 2 is just addressing areas that aren't beaches. So it's saying that other areas that people could swim in, like water holes, and we call them body contact water recreation areas, must also meet the provincial water quality objectives. And then number 3 is saying, like, if we didn't meet those objectives for the body contact recreation areas, we know why they're exceeding, and we have plans in place to be able to address that. So throughout the years since the 1980s, many actions have been put in place, and these are just a couple of them to reduce E. coli loadings into the river. So in 1995, the city of Cornwall put a pollution control plan in place, and it's been updated many years, 2005, 2008, 2019. The main industrial discharges at Cornwall have been discontinued or reduced. And you can see the list there. There's quite a few items that have been done, and there's more in the report. Just to go back, just to note that who monitors the water quality at the beaches. So For this report, we assessed Akwesasne beaches. So the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne Department of Health monitors up to 28 beaches every swimming season, and the Eastern Ontario Health Unit monitors the 2 beaches that we evaluated in the area of concern. That's Glengarry Park and Charlottenburg Park every swimming season. And this is just a normal program. It will continue to go on after we redesignate beaches. Okay, so I'll quickly go through the assessment. So this is criterion 1. This was just saying that we should be meeting water quality at beaches for the water quality objective at beaches for the majority of the swimming season, and if we should know where the pollution is coming from, and also that exceedances are occurring mainly due to natural events like rainfall. So for this, we assessed beaches, water quality data for 2012 to 2020 for 28 Akwesasne beaches and Glengarry and Charlottenburg Park, and we assessed them against the 20% exceedance criterion, so they couldn't exceed 20% of the time, or they have to be okay 80% of the time. And the results show that excluding the rainfall events, we were meeting that goal. So that was good. And then also there were field investigations done in 2011, so source tracking to see where there's what's contributing to E. coli at Glengarry and Charlottenburg beaches. And it was found it's both human and bovine or cow. But just the incidences of E. coli from human sources, which is the worst case scenario, were pretty low, so that's good. And the recommendation is criteria 1 has been met. And then this one is just, as I had said before, that we're meeting water quality objectives for other areas other than beaches. So other areas that could be, that people could be swimming in. And as you can see, there were studies done from 2002 to 2008 or through 2008, and sampling performed from 2012 to 2019 that showed that E. coli levels were actually pretty good for provincial water quality objectives, and they were being met. So the recommendation is that criteria 2 has been met. And criterion 3 was just pretty much addressing if there were exceedances in criterion 2, and there weren't, so that's good. We were meeting the provincial water quality objectives, and also it was just saying that we should have plans in place, and we have plans in place anyways, like the City of Cornwall pollution control plan will continue to be updated, and there's many other plans listed in the assessment report as well. And so we said that, or the report said that criterion 3 has been met as well. So as I said, the Restoration Council has now said that we can start a 60-day community engagement period. So we're about to start that. It should be happening any day now. And this will be for both the Akwesasne community and SD&G community. And then there will be a bunch of engagement activities listed there. And so yeah, that will probably be this summer and into the fall. And then we'll gather all those comments and submit them to the decision makers. So that is kind of where we're at. Hopefully that was understandable. And if you have any questions, just, yeah, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? Deputy Mayor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Warden. I just want to thank Georgia. I know she put a lot of effort into demystifying some of the acronyms, because when you do it all in acronym, it almost makes no sense anymore. So I know she put a lot of effort to make it clear. And I guess, I mean, again, I want to thank, just because I think it's a good news story. There's a lot of this work going on in the background with, you know, in terms of environmental work and cleanup. And this is something that, you know, we've been improving on. And there's so much doom and gloom about environmental stuff these days that I think it's important to highlight that this is something that, you know, if we put our minds to it and put plans in place, we can improve the condition of the water that we all share. So thanks again.
Absolutely. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Apologize for my voice tonight, but no, I'd like to thank Georgia as well. And I'll kind of repeat what she did the presentation to the Raisin region. What I had said there is that I think this is good news for the ag community specifically, and more than the ag community, but I'm going to mention them. Just that, you know, there's been a lot of effort over the last 20 some years to try to clean up some of the, you know, the manure pits. We used to have piles with runoff. They're all enclosed pits now. Cattle are out of the creeks, and a lot of good things have happened. And it's good to see a positive outcome come from that. It took a little time, but things have improved a lot. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Good points, Councillor Lang. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'd like to thank you both for coming to present to us this evening. Certainly a good news story, and we look forward to seeing the details of the public comments in the coming weeks. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All righty, moving on to 7A, Records Management Agreement. Stone Share Inc., Ms. Campo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I'm very excited to have this report before council this evening. You may recall earlier January of this year, council received a current state assessment report regarding our records management practices. And one of the recommendations that came out of that report was for the township to implement an electronic records management system. So over the last several months, the deputy clerk and I have been working with some other local municipalities, and we issued a joint tender for an electronic records management system. We were very excited to receive 9 submissions. It included a lot of reading going through those submissions, but we did narrow it down to 4 proponents for demonstrations. And after a very thorough review process, we're very excited to recommend that it be awarded to Stone Share. One of the major benefits of utilizing this program is that it's going to work with a system that we already have in place. It's through our Microsoft 360 program that we're already using in the office. So we're leveraging on the technology that we already have, and we're moving forward with a system that several other municipalities in SDNG are also going to be utilizing. So the next step forward in the process is to enter into this agreement, and subject to council's approval, we'll be moving forward and anticipate having the system in place by the end of 2022.
Okay, yeah, this was a big report. Lots of pages. Are there any questions or comments for members of council? Deputy Mayor Jaworski.
Just a quick one, just so that, you know, because I know that as Deputy, as Clerk Campo was saying, how she's excited about this. It might be, it's a dry topic in a lot of ways, that it was a thick report, but I know that this will go a long way to making things a lot more efficient in the township office and help us serve the residents even better. So I wanted to add some excitement to it, to the report. Thanks.
All righty. Moved by Martin Lang, second by Rebecca Luck. Be it resolved that staff report 110/2022 be received, and that the corporation of the Township of South Glengarry enter into an agreement with Stone Share Inc. relating to the implementation of a records management system, and furthermore that the clerk and mayor be authorized to sign all applicable documents. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And moving on to 7B, grant match, summary of grants and services fees, Mr. Mills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through you. Tonight, Council, I'm going to bring you a report regarding the number of successful grants we've been able to obtain in the past 9 months. Most of the grants that we've obtained in the last year or so have been using the services of Grant Match. In the council package, you will see an outline of the Grant Match company, as well as it's a sheet entitled Overall Funding Strategy, which lists the 6 grants that we've been successful with. We're particularly happy not only with the grants themselves, but the dollar amount, which is approaching $4 million in the past. There hasn't been necessarily a strategy in place for the township. We're working on that to get things in place, and we're also building capacity with staff because grants can be extremely time consuming to complete and to gain the knowledge on not only how to write them, but how to source them and how to find them. We've been diligent in pursuing the grants, and staff have been heavily involved in researching and providing information to Grant Match. We work collaboratively with the company, and they gain knowledge of the township and what our priorities are. So we communicate with Grant Match, and they reach out to government representatives, prepare communications on behalf of staff, complete and file the applications for us, and manage really comprehensive compliant reports that otherwise would be prohibitive in terms of timing for staff. There's no limit in terms of the number of grants we can submit. What has been an advantage is that you'll see a list of 6 grants there that we've been successful in through recreation and through water mainly, and our asset management plan. We were recently successful with an active transportation grant, and we'll be able to develop a plan for our bicycle pass and recreation pass through that funding, and we're lucky to have a transportation engineer on staff to help with that. There were 2 grants that we were unsuccessful with. So with Grant Match, if you're unsuccessful with a grant, then there's no fee at all. Our goal in the future would be certainly to do all of our grants in-house. I mentioned already that we've developed a lot of capacity, and that we'll have a path forward now. So why I come before you is that we'll continue down this road. We're actually applying for a grant for OTF right now on our own with staff without the assistance of a consultant. The impact on the budget is that the service fees have to be paid through the administration consultant fees. So at this point, I mentioned we have almost $3.8 million in approved grants, resulting in having to pay the consultant just over $174,000. We've been able to be successful in 2 areas where we had budgeted for in the 2022 budget. Namely, at the North Lancaster Playground Project, we had budgeted $60,000. We can scale the $32,000 of that back because we were successful on a grant and apply that to the necessary fees. And also the bocce ball court, which is now completed in Martintown, just over $21,000. That will continue to be a strategy even though we may have budgeted amounts in future years, that as we have grants come before us, we will apply for grants which may free up dollars to do other things. So to finish the report, you have everything in front of you, and what we're looking for is permission from council to reallocate some funds from the 2022 budget, along with just over $121,000 from general reserves. Just in terms of a number, what that ends up being is out of the almost $3.9 million, it's about 3.2% in terms of fees. That's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments of members of council? Deputy Mayor Jaworski and then Councillor Luck.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Warden. And I'm sorry, CEO Mills, that I wasn't able to think of this question prior to the meeting, but since the bulk of the sort of extra dollars or that are being, that we're trying to reallocate relate back to the Glen Walter water treatment assets, does it make sense for that amount to come out of general reserves, or should it come out of the reserves that are specific to the water treatment system, sorry?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. That's a good question. We had discussed that amongst administrative staff, and was felt it was better to come out of just general reserves. As I noted, that there are more savings to be had as we go along with certain projects this year, and our strategy next year would be we can always put money back in the general reserves as well from obtaining other grants. So that was felt the best spot.
Okay, Councillor Luck.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. CAO Mills, I know that you touched on it, and I apologize for you having to reiterate it, but I guess I wasn't quite clear in terms of how we're reallocating funds from the North Lancaster Playground and the bocce ball court. I saw from your table that we had, so for example, like the North Lancaster, we had the expenditure of 60 grand, but then we're saying that 32,000 as it's no longer needed from funding. Sorry, can you just re-explain that to me?
Yeah, it is a bit confusing for sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So in the North Lancaster Playground project, initially council allocated $60,000 towards the playground. We received a grant for it would be just over 40,000 after fees. And the cost of the actual playground, I don't have it in front of me, but just over 50,000. So we're able to claw back 32,000 out of that if necessary. And then similar with the bocce ball court, that there was money allocated in the 2022 budget to pay for that. And then we were able to get a grant, and it's hard to believe, but the estimated cost, we're actually not going to spend the whole grant here, but the estimated cost is much less than we thought it would be for the bocce ball court. So the total is just over $53,000 just from those two projects that we would have spent from budget. We could leave the dollar amounts there in the budget, but the recommendation is because of the cost of the grant service that we move it over, because we receive the money for those projects for a grant.
I see. Thank you for the clarification. Maybe just one more follow-up question. Where would those extra funds be normally allocated? If we were in the situation where we didn't need this to offset the cost amount for the fees, where would the excess grant money go? Would it go towards more equipment to these projects, or would it just be put somewhere else in the budget?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, it depends on the cost of the project. So in a few of the cases, we applied for a certain amount. We got a certain amount and it didn't cost that. So we have to give some of the grant money back. Otherwise, yes, the goal in the future is to be self-sustain this and not spend as much on service fees or grant writing. But the decision was to go this route. We don't have a long history of grant writing and having a grant writing strategy in this municipality, and we needed to. So we've used grant match to get us on that road. And then it would be the hopes that we wouldn't spend too much on grant writing at all. That being said, that it's a specialty that's difficult, and it's also extremely time consuming for staff when we're stretched already. It's hard to find a grant writer, period.
Okay, so thanks for that, Tim. I certainly can speak to that. We've received a ton of more grants in the last 2 years than we have probably the last 6 years that I can remember. So I certainly while it certainly costs us a little bit of money for this, I think we're definitely getting a return on that investment. That being said, Tim, I do have a concern in regards to the general reserves covering the 100 and something thousand in regards to the Glen Walter project. While I certainly am a huge proponent of that project, I don't feel like that because it's specifically for a water and sewer project. I don't know, like I think we got to be careful about that and having that money come out of general reserves. I'd like that to be maybe looked at a little closer, Tim. I think we got to be fair to the rest of the ratepayers who are not really receiving a benefit. Now, I do understand that there certainly is going to be some benefit because we're now going to have like fire services, and I'm sure that they'll be able to help the outlying area with the hydrants and stuff. But I think we got to be careful about taking the funds for that out of general reserves.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, we come back on the next council meeting at the beginning of August and finalize that.
Yeah, is there for this report, is there a strict timeline if it's deferred? Is it going to slow anything up? Or
No.
I mean, this certainly, I believe the consensus is we want to finish out what you're starting, and I think we're on the right track. But in regards to the allocation out of general reserves, I think we need a little further discussion on that.
Okay, sure, thank you.
Okay, so I think we'll postpone this, but I'll put it to a vote. Moved by Rebecca Luck, second by Sam Actonel. Be it resolved that staff report 111-2022 be received, and that the council hereby direct administration to continue working with grant match on an as-needed basis to secure the grant funding for capital projects, resources, and services. And furthermore, that the council approves the reallocation of $174,223.50 to general government administration consulting fees from the following accounts: $32,000 from the North Lancaster Park capital expenditure account, $21,060 from the Martintown Community Center capital expenditure account, and $121,163.50 from general reserves. All those in favor of this, Deputy Mayor Dworkin, get your hand up.
Well, yeah,
voting?
I wanted to put forward like a motion to defer, because if we say all in favor now and then it's defeated, procedurally I'm not sure how it works.
Okay, so all those in favor of postponing this resolution? Motion is postponed. Thank you. If you could get back to us on that, Mr. Mills or Mr. That would be good. Thank
I'll
you.
get back to you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, my apologies here. All right, moving on to 7AC, mass notification system, quotes by invitation. Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, I just like to mention that I have Mr. Dylan Sege here, who's our Director of Water and Wastewater, to assist me with this report. And may I ask, can you hear me this week? Last week, I know I had audio. Thank you.
Yep.
So this is a little request, but I think it's a big one in moving forward in communicating with our residents and considering our aging infrastructure and the challenges that we had this past winter with our water system. And if I may, Mr. Sege, lean on you for talking a bit about the need for this software.
Yes, definitely, Ms. McDonald. So through you, Mr. Mayor, as council may remember, we had in the last year, we had approximately 3 precautionary boil waters, both in Glen Walter and Lancaster. Obviously, most of these incidents occur at the last minute, and we don't have any notification right away. Currently, we have to print out papers and hand deliver door to door. As council may be aware, by the time we print the papers, We get enough staff to go door to door, at 300 to 400 homes, up to 500 in Lancaster. It can be anywhere from 3 to 6 hours before we hand deliver everything after an event occurs. With the new notification systems that are out there, we can easily do this from our cell phones or for the computers and get it to all the residents in the matter of seconds. Both with a notification of an incident, like a boil of water, within, by the time you get on the phone, sign on the programs and send it out to everyone, we're looking at maybe 5-10 minutes to get everyone notified, where in the past it would be 3 to 6 hours, just for an example. Obviously, if something happened at 2 o'clock in the morning, well, we might be looking at more than 6 hours to notify. So definitely a notification system in this magnitude is definitely the water department and the wastewater as well. But not only can we get them new notifications, but we can also follow up, data afterwards, let them know how much longer we think water might be out for. Or the second that we do get, notice from the Eastern Ontario Health Unit that we can lift the boil water, well, within 2 minutes, the residents will also know again. So it's definitely, it's a step forward for the South Glengarry, and I think it's like Sarah said, it's really small at the end of the day, but it's definitely it'll help it a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Sagan. I'll just jump in a bit about our procurement process. So council is aware, we went out by invitation only, and we leaned originally on South Dundas's investigations that they'd done, and they had looked at through an open bid 6 different providers, and they had a top 2 list of Voyant Alert and Everbridge. So we pursued those 2 and threw in B City, which is a freebie, but they are only an app on your phone. So the free option didn't include the mass notification through text or through email, which we felt was a necessity here in South Glengarry, because not everyone has a cell phone or wants to use an app. Both, as South Dundas found, both Voyant Alert and Everbridge were very qualified, and it really came down to a numbers game. So we are recommending that we enter into a 2-year service agreement with Voyant Alert for the amount noted in our staff report. And through you, Mr. Mayor, that is our presentation or report. Thank you.
Great. I'm very happy to see this come forward. I've been wanting this technology for a couple of years now. Things sometimes go slow, so I certainly appreciate your efforts, and I think this is going to be a wonderful addition, and it shows that our commitment to moving forward and incorporating technology into our services and what we offer our residents. Are there any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Jaworski.
Yeah, thank you through you, Mayor Warden. I just want to second what Mayor Warden said in terms of this is fantastic that we are looking at something like this, because I think it'll save, not only is it great for residents to get this info right away, I think it's going to save so much time, and I know you're stretched very thin in water already, so this is going to help do your work more efficiently, so I think that's fantastic. And I think it's I think it's great how staff went and did the work in terms of looking at who are different providers and stuff by leaning on work that's already been done, and still looking at a variety of competitive offers out there. So I think it was a good way of being efficient also at looking at the different options. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Just a question, would we be able to use this through our emergency plan? Like if there was a derailment or something and we had to notify residents, could it be used to notify people to, evacuate or whatever, or something like this? How far can we go with this thing, or is it just water and sewer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's an excellent question. We can use it for any kind of emergency notifications that we'd like. So my anticipated use right now is to share between water and roads. So we can do emergency road closures, which would be something like a derailment. And it really depends on how, so that the one snag in this system is how accurate our current phone list is. And we have found out through our water loss investigations that our current phone list needs a bit of work. So we're actively pursuing ways to get that up to date so we can use it for all emergency situations across South Glengarry.
Good question, Councillor Lang. Okay, any more questions? Seeing none, moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that staff report 112-2022 be received, and that the Township of South Glengarry enter into an agreement with Buoyant Alert for a 2-year term, and furthermore, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all applicable documents. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Ms. McDonald and Mr. Zege. And moving on to item 7D, temporary road closure of William Street and Herron Street. Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, this one will be quick. This year, the Great Raisin River Foot Race in Williamstown is celebrating its 43rd year, which is certainly an achievement, and we've received an official request to have a road closure of William Street and Herron Street on Saturday, August 7th, between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. to accommodate that foot race, excuse me. The length of the closure is shown in my staff report. It doesn't impact our municipal operations, and we can drop off the signs again on the Friday preceding and pick them up on the Monday following. It's right by our former works yard, so it's not a big endeavor from staff time. So we certainly support this if you folks do.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is the first time this has come forward, so I like things being formalized. Any questions or comments of members of council? Seeing none, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that the staff report 113-2022 be received, and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the temporary 5.5 kilometer closure of William Street and Herron Road for the sole purpose of the Great Raisin River Foot Race event on August 7th, 2022. All those in favor of the motion?
Mayor Warden, I think Councillor Lang had put his hand up right before you read the motion.
Oh, my apologies.
It's not too big a deal, but thank you, and through you. Just wanted to make sure it's closed, but to local traffic only. People that live on the road are not going to have to, I hope, shut down for 2 hours and not be able to leave or come or go, as they need to.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, correct. That is my understanding. And I believe I noted that we have the OPP and fire on site as well to help assist with that type of movement.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion as it was presented? Motion is carried. Thank you very much for bringing that up that point. And moving on to 7E, Night Official Plan Amendment. Ms. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So recently, the United Counties of SD&G received an official plan amendment application for the property known as the Knight property located at 18645. And this official plan amendment application was also accompanied with a zoning bylaw amendment application that was filed with the township. The purpose of the official plan amendment application was to research to determine if there was adequate space to be able to create a building lot through a consent process. And the reason for this is because the official plan does not permit new lot creation on private roads. It's the standard across the province. And for the reason being is a majority of the time, we do not want to increase the residential density for development on private roads where there could be concerns for access, service provisions such as recycling, garbage pickup, emergency services, things like that. So following a few meetings, a report, and a review, it was determined that we could possibly support an amendment to be site-specific to this location to allow the subject property to be severed to create a new building lot. And the reason for that is that this property is 4.1 acres in size. So that's an adequate size lot to be able to sever it and still have sufficient land to go with the severed and retained portion. So the official plan amendment proceeded. As you may recall, we held a public meeting. And at the public meeting, we had no one in attendance that spoke in opposition to the proposed official plan amendment. So the resolution that's before you this evening is to recommend to the United Counties Council to approve the official plan amendment for the subject property that would then permit the property owner to apply for a consent application. Once the official plan amendment is approved, or if it is approved, then we would then finalize the zoning bylaw amendment. So if it's approved, I'll be bringing a staff report before this council in the near future. And once that zoning bylaw amendment is approved, then we can finalize the consent application. So if there's any questions regarding this report, let me know, but I believe it should be fairly straightforward and clear. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Haley. Just a quick question. This is a site-specific zoning or official plan amendment, or would this apply to other properties that are located on private roads?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Mayor. It's site-specific, and it's important that it is site-specific because we need to evaluate each opportunity in isolation to determine that it can be created safely and that we're not creating the potential of creating a lot in an area that can't be serviced or can't be accessed properly.
Okay, because I believe there was an application down the road a few years ago. I don't feel like the folks went forward with it, but I remember something on Prevost Point Road. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none. Whoops. Moved by Martin Lang, second by Sam Actonel. Be it resolved that staff report 114-2022 be received, and that the council of the township recommend to the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry to approve the proposed official plan amendment for the property legally described as east part of Lot 24, Concession 1 front in the geographic township of Charlottenburg, now in the township of South Glengarry, county of Glengarry, also known as 18485 Prevost Point Road, to permit the approval of a consent application under the Ontario Planning Act to create a new building lot fronting onto a private road known as Prevost Point Road. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Haley. And moving on to 8A, Arch Corporation zoning bylaw, Ms. Haley.
Sorry about that. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. This property we've been talking about quite often recently, and I know council's been involved in our public meeting as well as in a information session we held at Smithfield Park. So we are bringing this report to you this evening with a recommendation to approve a site-specific zoning amendment for the property located on part of Block D, Register Plan 26, in the village of Lancaster, located on the north sides of Broad and Wood Street. The purpose of this application was to create a site-specific zone to allow an institutional exception to zone to permit a long-term care facility to be built, with a portion of that facility to be as high as 14 meters in height. And in my staff report, I included some visuals that were provided to the township through the applicant as to what the proposed long-term care home would look like. When reviewing this application, it was pretty clear that it was going to be able to conform to both the official plan as well as be consistent with the provincial policy statement. And really, from a provincial policy statement perspective, this is a great type of development to be accommodated in the village of Lancaster because we have the services to accommodate it. We also have a need for this type of housing for our aging population. And it'll also serve a greater part of the community outside of South Glengarry as well, as the beds will increase from 60 beds to, I believe, 128 beds at this long-term care home. From an official plan perspective, it certainly conformed. Again, it met the policies of the official plan in terms of the type of development that was being proposed, as well as the availability for municipal services. And we were able to look at making sure we can provide safe access to the subject property. If council is willing to approve this application this evening, what will this will allow then the zoning to be put in place to accommodate the long-term care home, as well as to allow the applicants to proceed with their design of the site plan and site plan control approval, followed by a building permit. And if all goes well, and if everything is approved as we go through these steps, it is anticipated to start construction in fall of 2023 with occupancy of July 2025. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for your report, Ms. Haley. This is an exciting project for our community, and I think it's going to be very good. Are there any other questions or comments of members of council? Seeing none, moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 115-2022 be received, and that bylaw 50-2022 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 38-09, the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the township of South Glengarry, to zone the property legally described as part of Lot D, Registered Plan 26, in the geographic village of Lancaster, now in the township of South Glengarry, County of Glengarry, from residential to low density R2 to institutional, exception 2, institutional 2, permit a maximum building height of 14 meters to accommodate a proposed long-term care facility. You read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 18th day of July 2022. The council of the township of South Glengarry confirms that no public comments were received on this application, and therefore there was no effect on the decision. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much for your work on that file, Ms. Haley. And we're moving on to item 8B, Appoint Compliance Audit Committee. Ms. Campo. You're on mute.
Geez, it's trying to get back into the habit of being online. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the bylaw that's before council this evening is to appoint a compliance audit committee, which is a committee that is required under the Municipal Elections Act and is appointed each council term in line with the election year. The purpose of the Compliance Audit Committee is to address any applications that are received from electors following the election for any perceived contraventions of the campaign finance requirements under the Municipal Elections Act, as well as to consider any apparent over contributions to campaigns. As you're all aware through your previous campaigns in the 2018 election, every candidate has a limit on how much they can spend on their campaign and how much they can receive in funding. It's a committee that you hope you don't have to utilize in a 4-year term, but those instances do occur. So we're lucky in SD&G. We have a really great clerks group, and we typically form a joint committee. So we're proposing to do the same thing this year. So the committee will represent all of the lower tiers in SD&G. We have representation from each of the counties, I believe there's one each from Dundas, Stormont, and Glengarry, and we also have 2 alternates. So the terms of reference for this committee has not changed from the previous term of council, other than to update some dates. And otherwise, subject to any questions of council, that's the bylaw that's before you this evening.
Thank you very much for your report, Ms. Campo. I think this is a great use of resources working together as a common SD&G, and it saves money and time. So I thank you and the other clerks for your efforts. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Rebecca Luck. Be resolved that staff report 116-2022 be received, and that the bylaw 49-2022 being a bylaw to appoint members to the SD, Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry Compliance Audit Committee and to adopt terms of reference for the committee be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 18th day of July 2022. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. All righty, so we're moving on to the consent agenda. We'll go with 9A, Resolution Ontario Amber Alert. Deputy Mayor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Warden. So I think most people would have heard the news of the tragic death of David Graham, who was a little boy on the spectrum who unfortunately basically went missing and unfortunately died. and I know, quite a few parents who have children on the spectrum, and a lot of them shared with me that, they have this terrible fear of something like this happening to a child who, in some cases is nonverbal and has difficulty, getting back to home. So, and it seems that there's kind of a breakdown in our system into how to help alert the public that there is a child like this that might need help, and that we have the Amber Alert system is very well utilized, and it's often credited with helping find children who have been abducted. But in the case of a child that is on the spectrum, there isn't. I'm sorry if you hear crying in the background, but one of my kids has just come in the door. Come here. I'm sorry. I have to deal with someone in the background here. But what I was going to say is that I would like to support this resolution so that, because I think there does need to be a system to help kids that are vulnerable, even when it's not a case of abduction. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I have certainly no issues with supporting that. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you bring this back at our next council meeting for a vote? And if you don't mind. Alrighty, okay, so moving on to 9E, firefighter certification. I'm not sure if it was Deputy Mayor Jaworski that asked Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I asked for this to come forward, and I'll just ask Chief Robertson to address it, please.
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. This evening's is just more or less an update on firefighter certification. It's an item I brought forward to yourselves numerous times over the last year. Once again, on April 14th of this year, the province amended the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. In brief, the amendment states that a firefighter employed within Ontario must be adequately trained and certified to a certification standard set out by the province. Making certain that all staff are fully trained to the various roles that they may perform will ensure that the health and safety of members, that we provide the best service to our residents and visitors, and in doing so, reduce the risk to the township related to firefighting operations, fire prevention, and inspection duties. So the legislation came into force on July the 1st of this year. There's a 4-year compliance window for all staff to be trained to the level of service as determined by council. In the month of June, 3 information sessions were held with all of our fire service staff. The information was well received, and the certification topic has been discussed within the province and with our members for a number of years now. So, as certification is now legislated, I feel that a number of the structural items of our fire service are going to need to be adjusted or changed. The establish and regulating bylaw, which is the bylaw that establishes and regulates our fire department, that's our own South Glengarry bylaw. That speaks to a number of the ways that we operate, and they're listed here. Some of them are listed here in the report. The levels of service. Basically, a municipality can determine the level of fire protection that the municipality desires, the council desires. Up until now, to date, South Glengarry has operated what can be described as a full service department. We offer exterior and interior firefighting, rescue services, extrication, hazardous materials response, and various other duties. It's our opinion that we continue to operate at this level of service. We just now need to train to a standard and be certified to that standard. So ensuring that our staff are trained for the roles that they perform. So with that, there's also the training aspect. Our historical training foundation, our structure is going to have to change to be able to meet these, especially in the next 4 years, because we're going to need to be offering numerous courses at any given time. So our current training structure is going to have to be modified, but that's also going to come with some increased labor costs, training materials, training facility costs, all of these will come with estimates and comparisons that I'll be bringing towards to council for the 2023 budget. But also, as far as labor and pay rates, or the compensation of staff, I think is going to have to be looked at. We're currently investigating compensation models in other municipalities and also with our neighbors, and I'll be bringing those also to council for your consideration. So I guess in brief, certification is going to change some things with our department, and with that, we're going to need to update and make some adjustments to our establishing and regulating bylaw, and I'm going to be bringing a draft version of that bylaw to council in the coming months for your consideration. So thank you, Councillor McAnell, for inviting me to bring this information report forward, and thank you, council, for your time.
Thanks for that, Chief. I think we're going to have a specific, committee of the whole meeting on this topic. I think that it warrants, I think it warrants its own meeting because it's a significant amount of our budget. And I think, council needs to send you clear direction on how we want to move forward. It may only happen in the new term, depending on where it goes, but I certainly think that it warrants its own meeting. And I think if we dive into this and see where we want to go, because that legislation is definitely going to have an impact on a lot of things. And I think council needs to, I'd like to see council sit down and say, where do we want to go with this, and see where it goes. So thank you again for the report. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll leave it at that for tonight. Thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate that. Deputy Mayor Jaworski, I hope your daughter's feeling better. Okay, moved by Rebecca Luck, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry accept the consent agenda. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And moving on. Moved by Martin Lang, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that council convene to close session at 8:07 p.m. to discuss the following items under section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. A meeting or part of the meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is A, proposed or pending disposition or acquisition of land, specifically staff report 117-2022, potential acquisition. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you all very much for attending, and we'll see you on the other side of